Hello everyone. In this video, I want to briefly introduce the upcoming eclipse season. There are a lot of really strong evolutionary themes, and I would really say that April, with this eclipse and all the strong transits, is probably one of the most astrologically potent months of the year. As a quick starter, the eclipse seasons are so important because they have to do with the lunar nodes. All year, all the time, the lunar nodes are sort of the evolutionary themes of the present moment. There where dynamics are emerging right now to be integrated and resolved, and where new choices, new experiences, new ways of knowing ourselves can be embraced that support our ongoing growth. When the eclipses happen, we have the lunar cycle happening on the node. So it's really emphasizing and bringing forward and making more real and imminent and relevant and intimate the evolutionary energetics of the nodal polarity. But they're always real. They're always important. I want to emphasize that. Always look at the transiting node to understand what are the evolutionary themes of the time. And within the 18 months that the nodes are moving through a sign, every 6 months we'll have 2, sometimes 3 eclipses. And these eclipses are just like, here's where the work is. This is what's up. A lot of energy can move through the portal of the nodes. Things can be released. That can be hard. New realizations to let go. New opportunities, new choices, new desires, new opportunities can emerge. That can be very exciting as well. All of it happens. And I think this is one of those eclipse seasons where it's just really charged. There's so much going on. Let's take a look at the basics of these eclipses. And I hope to give a little more attention to this as we get closer to the season. Looking at this first eclipse, this is a full moon lunar eclipse, moon on the south node, sun's on the north node. This is obviously focalizing this existing Aries Chiron north node conjunction. The rulers of the nodes are both in Pisces, okay? Venus is in a new phase with Saturn in conjunct the south node, and actually we have Jupiter also in conjunct the south node forming a yod. Venus rules the south node as well as Jupiter. So there's a lot of strong activity focalizing on the south node. And then we have opposite that, yod trigger point, that apex, we have the north node. So yod is when we have 2 inconjuncts, 150 degrees from a single point. That puts a lot of stress on that point. So there's a lot of stress on that south node. And being that the moon is there, the clear indication is this is actually a very strong release point. We're integrating and bringing an immense amount of clarity and insight into our relationships. That's what I would really speak to for this first eclipse, and the second one too, actually. The trap is the affinity and the emotional addiction of what feels good and the roles that we're comfortable with and familiar with. The growing Jupiter-Uranus new phase and that Jupiter in conjunct to the south node incredibly emphasizes the significance of tuning into how you feel. Do I feel good about the life I'm living, or am I stuck on what's familiar and known and I'm afraid of making changes? Within our relationships, there's always the status quo, the roles, the conditions, the expectations, how we've agreed to show up. And then there's that deeper question, do I feel myself? Jupiter in Taurus wants to feel, I feel myself. I'm living in alignment with my values, with what it feels like, tastes like, looks like, to be in my own vibration. And that Jupiter-Uranus is simplifying and clarifying and helping us sort of see our life from a broader perspective. What's really necessary? What do we really need? What's really helpful? What's a distraction? And then bringing that into our relationships, bringing more of our own self-value and our self-trust and our self-respect. But we have to really appreciate the trap in getting stuck in, but do you feel good about that? Who do you want me to be? How can I be pleasing to you? And the confusion that we have around what we think love is and what love actually is. With Venus on the other end of this yod, in a new phase with Saturn, I think a big part of this is unraveling and deconditioning and forgiving the judgments and the roles that we've played. I'm supposed to be that. This is what loving looks like. This is what a good spiritual person looks like. This might be healing some dimension of self-sacrifice or spiritual bypassing within our relationships The key is to give from a place of spiritual maturity. We want to be a co-creator with the divine and with one another. That what we're doing and what we're choosing is coming from our agency and our thoughtful, conscious choice. You can teach a kid to share, but that sharing might feel like I'm just supposed to do it, right? Like I have to give it, but I don't really want to give it. And that's very different than teaching a kid to find joy and fulfillment in giving of themselves to other people. The difference between the two is so profound. And we learn so much in our relationships, in our own conditioning, what it's like to love, what it's like to be a good giver, what it's like to share. But we may not ever really feel like we're fully present, like we're fully here. We're just doing what we're supposed to do. This really puts a lot of attention, especially since Venus rules both Taurus and that South Node, and they're both sharing this Yod to the South Node. This puts a lot of attention to, think of Taurus and Pisces together as sort of like a spiritual monastic. I want to feel internally like I'm rich and full of joy and divine connection. But am I stuck in these patterns and these obligations and roles that are kind of interrupting that? So we want to really understand that sometimes love and giving means letting go of the guilt and the shame and the constructs. We never need to sacrifice ourselves and make ourselves be somewhere that we're not, because then all that Aries comes in and there's a lot of anger on the other end of that. That's a big teaching for Mars and Pisces in particular. So let's look at the second eclipse, because Mars now is actually moving to join that very Saturn, joining that in conjunct with that South Node. But here it's Mars, the ruler of the North Node. Okay, and Venus, the ruler of the South Node, is now in Aries, right? So there's a very different energetic. I would say Mars is a lot more highlighted and focused. It's so important, and this is really what the theme is, that we're making our own choices in life. Whatever the choice is, we have to be the one to make it. We're always making this. There's a teaching in A Course in Miracles that says decisions are constant. We might think that we're actually sometimes making choices and other times not making choices. But if we really understand our own power, we're actually always making choices. But we're not generally in touch with who we are. And so we've given our power away to a sort of haze of confusion and disconnect. And so we're not aware of the choices that we're making moment to moment with where to direct our energy, with where to direct our attention. This Mars says taking responsibility for your own anger, your own rage, your own repression. And if we have not been claiming it, this Saturn can either feel incredibly stuck and victimized, or it can be a strong push to do something about our life. And this can be the kind of experience where like the stress and the discomfort of, not stirring the pot becomes stronger than the stress and the discomfort of actually doing our work, right? I'd rather make a choice and make a bold decision and move forward with my life so that I can actually have a strong vibration and actually do something, meet something, create something, than being in this endlessly ambiguous, confused place. This happening with that Chiron North Node conjunction is initiating that Chiron North Node. I can't emphasize that enough. It's almost like this makes it really alive right now. And so there's no moving forward without some dimension of vulnerability or tenderness. Like, do I have the strength to do this? Do I have the skill? Do I have the capacity? Am I actually going to come out on the other end of this? Can I trust myself? The answer is yes. You can trust yourself. You also will probably feel a lot of self-doubt. And yes, this might feel difficult. Yes, there might be a sort of loss of innocence. That's hard to deal with Pisces. When we start becoming more of a person, so to speak, when we're being more active and actually making choices in life, it sometimes feels like we're straying from a sort of primordial purity and innocence and trust of life. But what we're actually doing is we're learning how to truly trust life, because we're learning how to trust ourselves to be engaged and to be here and to be alive. I would say the theme of this eclipse is, if you're not here, none of this matters anyway. Okay, and that feels like a great place to stop. Reminder that my training program begins this week. Now is the time to join if you're drawn to go more deeply into these teachings. I will keep enrollment open a little bit longer for us to get settled as we're just getting oriented to the first weeks of the program. I am also available to offer sessions for individuals and couples in service to your ongoing soul growth and evolution. I also have a thing called Soul to Soul Companionship, which is where I offer more long-term sessions that are discounted, but to also create more of a continuity and a rhythm with those who work with me in that way. You can check all of that out in the description below. Thank you for watching.